Drew Olson with Procore. Would love to discuss. We've got a table outside. I won't give you my mini pitch. We'll do it outside in the hallway. But we have a single passion for construction management, is what I will tell you. We're talking about ports, though, today, and the growth of ports in the business in Florida. So I am admittedly more of a roads and highways and rail engineer, but I get to learn some more about ports. And so I did some quick research here as I got to moderate the panel. To be fast, what I learned is it's the second year in a row of record growth for Florida in the ports. 2 years out of COVID. We're going to hear a little bit about how that probably influenced that growth, I'm sure. And really, that made me think of what we really found. Don't let a good pandemic go to waste, right? So sort of what bubbled to the top during COVID. Healthcare system, right? Clearly. Supply chain issues, very relevant to the port topic here. And then also cloud technology. Really, I mean, those of us that were selling cloud before, the pandemic took care of that, right? There's no more argument on the need for cloud. And that brought the broadband investment, which I'm super interested in as well, sort of as a national effort. But quick stats. The state's 10 port facilities handling more than 114 million tons of cargo in 2023. That's up 1.5% from 2022, which was a record year for them also. That is, there was 7 ports counted 19 million cruise passengers, topping the pre-COVID record set in 2019. So between tonnage of cargo and passengers is what this massive growth is seeing in Florida, to the point where Florida has the world's largest cruise ports. And then the last thing I'm going to mention on, because I loved it so much, was how the port really affects a state's economy and the nation's economy. So cargo and cruise activities support, just in the state of Florida, 900,000 direct and indirect jobs. I come from New Mexico. That's nearly half our state population. So I'm thinking of an employment engine like that at a place like, inland. But anyways, responsible for $118 billion in economic value for the state, just coming through those ports. And then that represents 13% of Florida's GDP. And so one of the key stats, which near and dear to my transportation heart, is why is that? Why is Florida so easy to turn on that dime, make those adjustments when needed, when the nation needed you, right? And you really did it. And one of the key points here that I love is it was Florida's forward-leaning investment in infrastructure in general across your state. So what's so great about your ports? The ports are linked so closely to road, rail, and air. So it really is an entry point for supply chain across the nation, which we desperately so needed. And I know Glenn and team is going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to shut up with that. Those were the fun facts that I found super interesting. Glenn and Kelsey are the experts. So maybe we'll just do a quick, 30-second intro on who you guys are and what you do. Kelsey?
Sorry. Yeah. Is it on? I don't know. Oh, there we go. Can y'all hear me? Okay, cool. Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. I'm Kelsey Cox. I'm the Senior Director of Engineering and Construction at the Jacksonville Port Authority, aka JaxPort. I manage the landside and marine infrastructure projects for Jacksonville at the port, and then also I manage the dredging for JaxPort and our berths, and additionally, I coordinate with the federal and state and local agencies for funding and how we can move Jacksonville forward.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Glenn Wiltshire. I'm the acting director at Port Everglades, which means I'm in charge of everything right now. But my normal job as deputy director is I oversee operations, finance, and security at the port. So I think you want me to start talking first, Drew?
Yeah. I thought Glenn he's so tied in with his vast experience that he could give us kind of a state of ports maybe as a starter here, yeah?
No, thanks, Drew. And Drew hit on a lot of the statistics about, why are ports so important to Florida? Well, everybody knows Florida's a peninsula. We've got water on 3 sides, and we've got 16 public ports that are supported by the state through state grants and other things. And why is that? Because Florida, if you think about Florida is a great place to live, great place to come to. And I was just up in Tallahassee yesterday. Florida has between 800 and 1,000 new residents coming every day. So all of those statistics about the amount of trade, some of that is to support the consuming population that we have here. But the other big piece that seaports in Florida support is Latin America. We're the grocery store, in essence, of Latin America and the Caribbean. And that extends all the way down into what we call the three coasts of South America, the West Coast, the North Coast, and the East Coast, as well as Central America. So that's why the ports are so important to the state. You mentioned the number of jobs that are supported, 900,000 jobs. And those are both jobs on the ports. We always get from Port Everglades, people say, well, you say there's 9,000 direct jobs. Where are those people? I don't see them all. Because it's not just the jobs at the port. It's the jobs that are out in the community directly tied to the port. And cruise, you mentioned cruise. Florida has the world's 3 largest cruise home ports. Port Everglades happens to be number 3 in the world. So millions of people are coming and traveling to Florida to go on a cruise every day. And it's not just they're going on a cruise. They're staying in a hotel. They're eating at a restaurant. They're visiting the attractions, whether it's Mickey in Orlando or anywhere else. So that's really, seaports are critical for the state. And why does it matter to this group? Because those ports have been around for a long time and they need to invest. So a report, if you wanted to go online, the Seaport Mission Plan that just came out last week, actually, put together by the Florida Ports Council, $5 billion of capital investment are expected in the seaports here in Florida in the next 5 years. And those vary from environmental. The last panel was just talking about environmental, and we at Port Everglades are projected for a deepening project that hopefully will start sometime soon. $600 million of a $1.35 billion project will go to environmental mitigation or minimization, which means growing coral to plant offshore and things like that. But it's the cruise terminals too. $1 billion of that $5 billion is expected to be spent on cruise terminal development because, why do people come to Florida to go on a cruise? It's a great place to come to, but more importantly, we're close to the places where they want to cruise, the Caribbean, Central America, South America. So that's really where the takeoff point for a lot of those things. So that's just a couple of examples of the things and the reasons why the ports in Florida are so critical.
That's awesome. And you reminded me of one of my sexier facts of infrastructure here, as Florida is a hub to mega yachts when you measure for extended stays in marinas. And also now increasingly, because they're hanging around here, maintenance of super yachts is becoming a pretty hot industry as well. So, it grows and grows and grows, kind of to your point, right? Once the facility.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale itself is a yacht capital of the world, as they say. Some guy named Bezos, his yacht tried to quietly come into town. Oh, it didn't fit at a normal dock. It ended up at the cargo dock next to some petroleum tank ships, and that was the story, that this extremely expensive yacht was sitting next to some oil tankers.
Super cool.
But they needed a parking spot, and that's one thing about a Florida port.
I love it.
If there's a demand, we will figure out how to meet it.
It's fun. It's a little bit funner than roads, I'm starting to think, you know what I mean? Okay, so I thought also then, kind of in light of trying to how to engage the industry in helping them deliver a $5 billion program, that kind of thing, we thought maybe Kelsey could give us, kind of bring those macro stats down to kind of what's happening at Jacksport, maybe kind of a little bit more on your program specifically and how these folks can help you in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So I firmly believe, and I'm coming back to what Glenn says. I mean, our infrastructure and our legislature has been very kind to us. And so, the running joke around when I go to my finance team is, hey, you give me the money, we'll spend it. That's never a problem. But the investment of our infrastructure is critical to our ports and continue to grow. I mean, we're a little different, and Glenn, I don't know if you touched on this or not, but Florida ports are a little bit different. We're not the Georgia Ports Authority. We're not under like one big umbrella. We technically kind of are because we're in a Florida Ports Council, so we're independent, but we also want to work together because we want to bring, all this business and this economic growth to the state of Florida as a whole. So, working with us, and we always tell everyone, I'm like, go to our procurement website, talk to us, and we really heavily rely on public-private partnerships, and so Jacksport's a landlord port, and we have 4 terminals, and so our 2 biggest terminals from a tenant standpoint is our Blunt Island Marine Terminal and then our Talleyrand Terminal, and so one of our tenants is Southeast Toyota. And although we may not be, Jacksport's not heavily reliant on cruise, even though we just got Norwegian to come last week, and so you may have seen that announcement. We're not as heavily as cruise as Everglades and Canaveral and Miami, but we are. It is an important business aspect to us. But one of our largest business segments is vehicle handling. And so Southeast Toyota is currently at our Talleyrand terminal, and we just signed a huge partnership with them, and they are relocating to our Blunt Island Marine Terminal. Well, since they're vacating Talleyrand and they're going to Blunt Island, we have now vacant space on Talleyrand. And so we have another tenant, our current tenant is Instructure, they're out of Delaware. They just signed a multi-million-dollar lease to, once Toyota vacates, they're going to enter into that lease area. And so now they're going to be one of our largest tenants in Talleyrand. So I think public-private partnership is just so huge for us. It's not just, we are federally and state grant funded, and also locally too, but our tenants are investing into their infrastructure and investing into the state of Florida, and they're so focused on this economic growth and bringing jobs and just importing and exporting as much as they can and creating a larger footprint and being more sustainable and more effective and more efficient. And I would say that partnering with our tenants is just so critical to the growth of Florida, and it's nice to see that our initiatives line with theirs, and if it weren't for that partnership, we would not be successful. That's my 2 cents. I know, Glenn, you probably would agree on that too.
No, I think, Kelsey, you're right, because all of the ports in Florida are landlord ports, which means we're there to provide the underlying infrastructure to make our tenants succeed. I just completed earlier this week some negotiations with one of our tenants that they're going to invest $40 million of their money on not just hard in-the-ground assets, but equipment. Because now as we look forward, we have to think about sustainability. We have to think about resiliency and reducing the carbon footprint, some of those buzzwords. And that's what we've asked our tenants to look at, is looking at things like that, that we can be more efficient, because ultimately the measure of a terminal, mostly containers because they're easiest to measure, is how quickly can that container either get off the highway, that last mile, and we just don't limit our picture to, at our fence line. It's how are we working with the Florida Department of Transportation to invest in that last mile to get those trucks in and out, or those passengers in and out, working with the cruise lines. Going back in 2008, when we at the time built the world's largest single ship cruise terminal in the world, 250,000 square feet for Royal Caribbean, and their commitment was, we want to get the passenger from the curb to the buffet in 15 minutes. And they actually got it down to 10 minutes. But that was all part of taking into account of those investments that are needed, and sort of flipping over to a couple of our projects that we have going on right now. Port Everglades was actually opened in 1928, and we actually still have some steel bulkheads that were originally put in 1928 to open the entrance channel. So a lot of our investment going forward is on renewing the infrastructure that's already there, and with that comes opportunities for redesigning, rethinking how I heard in the last panel some references to living shorelines. Well, you can't put a living shoreline next to a ship, you're pretty much, stuck with steel or concrete bulkheads. But in other areas around the port where we have the opportunity to do that, or outside the port, we have a $44 million project going on right now to enhance seagrass beds and manatee birthing areas. We birth ships with an E. Manatees birth with an I. So doing those things to enhance the environment. Another thing when it comes to crews is how do you move those people around? So Broward County, and we are a county department, has a project that will probably be well over $1 billion to connect the airport, Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport being the closest airport to any seaport in the United States, and connect that to not just the seaport, but the convention center, which is currently finishing a hotel. And then that will provide connectivity through the county as part of a long-term plan using light rail to more efficiently move those people in and out. And it's not just the passengers, it's the workers. Because whether you call it affordable housing, workforce housing, all of these people that have jobs at ports need a place to live that they can afford to live. And in many areas of not just Florida, but the country, affordability of the housing is a real challenge for us. So we work very closely with our counterpart departments in the county government and with state and other agencies to sort of look at that piece of it too. It's not just the infrastructure on the port, it's supporting the whole community.
It's a network in the community, and there's nothing more multimodal is what I was starting to think as I was jotting down my notes over the week, right? I mean, it really is baffling. So to try to keep our promise alive, we've made up some time here. We want to get you guys to lunch. I would just like to personally thank you guys for what you do, because if it's easy to forget where the water comes from out of your tap, or when you flush the toilet, where it goes, or how electricity comes out of the wall, I do think about those things a lot more than where the toilet paper comes to the store shelf, right? And during COVID, when we saw those images of California with all those ships out there waiting to bring it, right? It's like, it was eye-opening. And so I just really love this session. Sorry we had to go a little short on you, but Ken, thanks for getting this and letting me participate. Really great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.